I'm Dr. Michael Carter. After more than 30 years treating older men, I've seen too many cases where death didn't come from disease, but from neglect. And often that neglect starts from within. A man gives up on his sexual health, thinking it's the noble thing to do, when in fact it's the first quiet step toward physical decline, hormonal collapse, prostate issues, and a fading sense of self. Today, I want to say what few are willing to. I still remember a crisp autumn afternoon when a 72-year-old man was brought into the ER unresponsive, pulse gone. He'd been living alone, widowed for nearly a decade, and by all accounts had stopped caring for himself long ago. No signs of trauma, no stroke, no heart attack. His heart simply gave up. The coroner's report listed natural causes, but I knew better. This was silent biological collapse, a slow fade of vitality that had gone unnoticed and untreated. He didn't die from disease. He died from the absence of life, no hormones to regulate mood, no sexual activity to stimulate circulation, no internal drive to keep going. And what haunts me most is this: he wasn't the exception. Countless older men are fading quietly while still alive. They sit in silent homes, the TV glowing like their only companion, and no one notices the emptiness in their eyes or the weight behind their sighs. Worse still, many of them believe this is just what getting old looks like. I've worked with hundreds of men who truly think that after 60, desire should be packed away and forgotten. They've convinced themselves that giving up sex is natural, even noble, but science and my own decades of experience says otherwise. When a man loses connection to his body, the first thing to disappear isn't sex, it's life itself. Sexual function isn't just about pleasure. In later life, it becomes a marker of vascular health, neurological vitality, and hormonal balance. When a man stops all sexual activity, especially when he no longer has a partner, his prostate becomes congested, his testosterone plummets, and his emotions begin to shut down. Slowly, piece by piece, he vanishes from his own life without realizing it. I once asked a patient why he no longer cared about sexual release. He gave a quiet, sad smile and said, "I figured that part of my life was over." I looked in his eyes, not peace, but resignation. That's what's killing so many older men today. Not cancer, not heart disease, but the feeling that they're no longer men. Today, I'm here to break that silence. To say this clearly, giving up on your sexuality in old age isn't virtuous, it's dangerous. And if you're listening right now, I want you to know it's not too late. We don't have to chase youth, but we do need to protect what keeps us alive in aging connection, sensation, and self-worth. Many men walk into my clinic at 65, 70, even 75 years old, looking relatively healthy, no major medical conditions, but carrying a quiet worry. "Doc," they say, "I'm not waking up like I used to." They're talking about the disappearance of spontaneous erections, a silent signal that everything was still working down there. Some feel confused, others are scared. But most are just caught off guard because no one ever told them this could happen. No illness, no trauma, just one day something that once came naturally stops. I usually sit down, look them in the eye and say, "You're not broken, you're just slowly shutting down." And it's not their fault. No one taught them that the penis, like any other part of the body, requires use to stay functional. After 60, blood flow to the groin naturally slows. Without stimulation, without circulation, the erectile tissue starts to deteriorate. Literally. Imagine putting your leg in a cast for 6 months. When the cast comes off, you won't walk normally. Muscles atrophy, joints stiffen, nerves lose responsiveness. The same happens when you stop using your sexual organ. It doesn't rest, it weakens. Here's the truth. What you don't use, you start to lose. That's not a metaphor. It's physiology. Blood flow declines. Oxygen delivery drops. Tissue shrinks. Nerves lose sensitivity. Over time, achieving an erection becomes difficult, then rare, then impossible. And by then, even medication often won't help, because the foundation is already compromised. I've seen too many men come in too late. They sit across from me, eyes glassy, asking, "Can I get it back? I never lie." Some can if they commit to aggressive therapy, hormone support, nerve rehabilitation. But others have already crossed the point of no return. What hurts most is that many of them believed they were doing the right thing, letting go of desire, choosing discipline. But no one told them that silent choice was the first step in a quiet collapse. This isn't about indulgence, it's about preservation. A simple act, masturbation, can actually help the body maintain blood flow, tissue elasticity, and nerve response. It's one of the few tools we have to protect this part of our biology as we age. Just once or twice a week. No shame, no obsession. Just a reminder to your body that this function still matters, that it still belongs to you. As we get older, the goal isn't to relive youth. It's to hold on to the parts of ourselves that make us feel alive. There's something I often tell my older male patients. If it feels like you're slowly disappearing from your own life, chances are it's your hormones calling out for help. And I'm not talking about sex. I'm talking about life energy. That morning, spark the drive to fix things around the house. The joy in simple routines like walking, gardening, or just stepping outside. When those feelings start to fade, it's often a sign that testosterone, the hormone at the heart of male vitality, is quietly crashing. Yes, testosterone naturally declines with age. But here's the truth, it doesn't have to fall off a cliff. In most cases, I've seen the steep drop isn't just nature, it's the result of completely disconnecting from one's own body. Especially through the total withdrawal from sexual activity, including masturbation. What many men don't realize is that masturbation, when done in moderation, is not just a sexual act, it's a biological signal. When you become aroused, your brain sends messages to the pituitary gland, activates the hypothalamus, and tells your testicles to keep producing testosterone. It's a natural feedback loop, and like any system, it needs to be engaged regularly to stay strong. But when you go months or years without sexual activity, your body gets the message, this isn't needed anymore. And quietly, your internal system starts shutting down, testosterone drops, desire fades, emotions flatten, no warning signs, just silence. I remember one patient, a retired firefighter. He once ran into burning buildings, saved lives without hesitation. But in his late 60s, he told me, "Doc, I don't even recognize the man in the mirror anymore." Not because he was sick, but because he no longer felt desire, no longer had energy, no longer felt necessary. His hormone levels were dangerously low. But thankfully, he came in early. With a tailored plan of movement, lifestyle changes, and gradually reintroducing sexual stimulation, he began to feel like himself again. The symptoms of hormonal decline don't show up on a chart alone. They show up in chronic fatigue, in losing interest in things you once loved, in irritability, withdrawal, and a slow shrinking of your presence in the world. But here's the key, it's preventable if you know how to respond. And one of the most effective natural ways to support your hormonal rhythm is simple: stay sexually connected to yourself. Whether through intimacy with a partner or through healthy solo release, the message to your body is clear: keep going, this still matters. When testosterone flows properly, the difference is remarkable. Mental clarity improves, sleep deepens, mood lifts. Your sense of inner strength returns. I'm not promoting obsession with sex. I'm promoting awareness that sexual function isn't just physical. It's foundational to your emotional health, your dignity, and your will to live. Most people think of the prostate as a minor organ, small, unimportant, only causing trouble when it's too late. But as a urologist with over 30 years of experience treating older men, let me tell you plainly, your prostate quietly determines your quality of life after 60. And the most dangerous part, what harms it the most, doesn't cause pain at first. It happens slowly, quietly, like a backed-up drain. I've treated countless men who come in complaining of weak urination, getting up multiple times at night, pressure in the lower abdomen, or a dull ache in their back. Most think it's their bladder or kidneys. But when we run tests, PSA ultrasound scopes, we often discover the real issue: a swollen, inflamed, congested prostate that hasn't been emptied in months, even years. They're surprised when I explain the prostate produces most of your semen, and it's designed to be flushed regularly. Think of it like a water tank. If you never drain it, sediment builds up, pipes clog, and pressure rises. When you stop ejaculating through sex or solo release, the fluid thickens, and thick fluid leads to inflammation. That thickened fluid doesn't just swell the prostate. It presses against the bladder, making you feel like you need to urinate constantly but can't fully empty. You wake up several times at night. You feel heaviness and discomfort that doesn't go away. It's not a sharp pain, but it's persistent. A constant reminder that something isn't right inside you. I treated a man in his 70s, healthy on the outside, but he complained of a strange pelvic pressure. He hadn't had sex in 2 years, thinking, I'm too old for that now. His PSA was high, and his prostate was enlarged. We had to talk about a biopsy, something that might have been avoided with one simple change. Regular ejaculation just once or twice a week could have made all the difference. In fact, studies, including one from Harvard, have shown that men who ejaculate regularly may have a lower risk of prostate cancer. Why? Because when the prostate is regularly emptied, there's less buildup of toxins, less inflammation, and fewer opportunities for cellular changes that can turn dangerous. Chronic prostatitis is no small matter. It's not just about discomfort. It's months of antibiotics, pelvic pain, burning, and even injections or surgery in severe cases. I've seen it rob men of sleep energy and dignity. And all of it could have been prevented with one small, private, but critical act keeping your prostate active. You don't have to relive your youth. But as your doctor, I want you to understand, ignoring your prostate, avoiding sex, avoiding ejaculation, is like abandoning one of the most vital keys to comfort, independence, and self-respect in your later years. There's something modern medicine still hesitates to talk about when sexual connection fades. In older age, it doesn't just harm the body, it slowly erodes the spirit. I've spent hours in my office sitting across from men who looked fine. No major pain, no obvious illness. But when I asked, when was the last time you truly felt alive, the room often fell silent. Because they didn't remember. One man, 68 years old, once told me, I'm still breathing, doc, but it feels like I'm just existing. I don't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. That's a kind of loss, without a funeral, a fading of identity, a disconnection from the self. We tend to think of sexuality as something that only matters when you're young. But here's the truth: desire pleasure. The act of being touched, or even touching yourself, is part of what makes you feel human. When that part of life is shut down by choice or circumstance, something inside the soul begins to dim. Men, especially those from generations where emotions were rarely discussed, don't often have words for this kind of loneliness. It shows up instead in withdrawal and silence, in the quiet fading of joy. Friends and family assume they've slowed down with age, but inside it's a man who's simply lost connection with himself. Sex isn't just about physical satisfaction. For older adults, it plays a powerful role in stimulating dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, brain chemicals that stabilize mood, reduce anxiety, prevent depression, and keep the mind engaged. I once treated a retired school teacher, a well-respected, disciplined man, who told me, I'm not sad, but I'm not happy either. I feel muted inside. After a full evaluation, I didn't just put him on hormone therapy. I encouraged him to reconnect with his body through small, intentional self-care routines, including healthy, shame-free solo intimacy. A few months later, his voice had more life. He started volunteering again, returned to writing, and most importantly, realized that he hadn't truly grown old. He had simply let go of a vital part of himself too soon. Emotional isolation is one of the greatest dangers of aging. And ironically, it often begins when a man stops touching himself literally and metaphorically. I share this not to invade privacy, but to open a space for honesty, dignity, and human connection. Growing older should never mean turning off the lights, not in your room, and certainly not in your soul. If you've stayed with me this far, let me say something straight from the heart. Growing older isn't the end. It's just a new chapter, and you still get to decide how you want to live it. I've told you about the man slumped in his recliner, the quiet crash of hormones, the inflamed prostate crying for help, and the loneliness behind the eyes of men who seem fine. But none of these stories were meant to scare you. They were meant to wake you up. Because here's the truth, it's never too late to reconnect with yourself. Your body hasn't shut down. It's just waiting for a signal to come back online. And sometimes that signal is as simple as acknowledging that you still matter physically and emotionally. As a doctor, I'm not promoting indulgence. I'm talking about self-care, self-respect, and self-revival. A small habit like healthy masturbation once or twice a week isn't just a fleeting release. It's a message to your nervous system, your pituitary gland, your prostate, and your heart that you're still here and you still care. Some men feel embarrassed believing that sexuality after 60 is inappropriate or irrelevant. But let me tell you that silence is exactly what's stealing life from inside you. And if you've spent decades being a husband, a father, a worker, a soldier, a provider, then you've earned the right to protect what's still yours. Start small. Pay attention to your body. Notice when you're tired, when you can't sleep, when you've lost focus. Give yourself permission to feel, not just to endure. Create space to maintain intimacy, whether with a partner or privately. And if that connection has been gone for too long, don't be afraid to speak with a specialist. There are hormone therapies, pelvic floor exercises, circulatory support techniques that I and thousands of my colleagues across America use to help men reclaim that deep sense of being alive. You are not alone, and you don't have to do this by yourself. Your body, your mind, your dignity, they deserve care. Just as you've cared for your family, your work, and your community for all these years. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to remind you you're still alive. And the part of you that's alive needs you to come back to it, not with the strength of youth, but with the wisdom of experience. Because sometimes the bravest thing a man can do isn't to keep pushing forward, but to turn back and come home to himself.